Hello again, everyone. My name is Moritz Bierling. Today we have on our show at the Creative Economy Interviews Adriano Autino, an Italian who has a very varied background in software, in industry, in aerospace, and his main work currently is on the Space Renaissance initiative. And hello, Adriano.
Hi.
Good to have you on the show.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
sorry, I'm trying to put the address of this interview on Facebook in order to let my friends to join if they like.
I will just continue introducing you, and then we can return to the questions.
Okay.
Adriano has provided me with some information about him and his work, and I will just introduce him a little bit more further. So he has, during his business life, worked on developing real-time automation software systems, both in industry, research, and in aerospace. And during the last 20 years, he developed methodologies and tools for systems engineering and the project lifecycle management. Now, in that time, he has visited a lot of countries, namely Russia, also many Arabic countries. And through that travel, he has been able to experiment with different social settings and different cultural diversity that helps him to put into context what really is more an Italian thing about him and his usual work environment, and what is more of a universal human experience. And with that kind of understanding, and using his experience as a small entrepreneur, he is currently working on the Space Renaissance initiative, trying to help bring people up to a point where we can actually start talking seriously about exploring space, and not just exploring, but also colonizing it. And so with that out of the way, I will have Adriano on the show, and we can start asking him questions and start the conversation.
Yeah, here I am.
Okay, very good. So let's start with the first question. Your career has been a very interesting development from kind of a relatively standard script of the Western life narrative, where you go to school, you go to university, you get your degree, you get your job, and continue progressing there. But then at some point, you started doing things differently, I think. Do you know when that kind of change happened, or has it always been with you, this kind of philosophical understanding?
Well, I could say that I always had in my mind a deep concern for the social issues of humanity, and I grew up and I got my education in a period when, in an age when the young generation were very much trying to move ahead. It was '68. And so I took part to the movements of the students and all this kind of things. And we started to think in terms of a global community, not only for ourselves as individuals, but to think in a collective dimension. Then when I began to work as a software developer, I had, as you mentioned before during your introduction, the possibility to travel and to visit the world, and to understand that more or less humanity had the same problems around the world. The governance methodologies and models were different, but the very basic problems were the same. That is, I can summarize now after many years of thinking and elaborating.
Yes.
That is social growth. That means that you can have your birth in a rich family or in a poor family, but you should have the same opportunity to develop your intelligence and to have the possibility and to have the possibility to give your contribute to the world, to humanity. So at a certain point of my life, in 87, maybe 86, 87, 88, I was aware about the ecologist criticism of the industrial society. This was coming up with the Club of Rome of Augusto Pecei and other thinkers that try to reason on this file of thinking. And I quickly arrived to the conclusion that if they could be right in their analysis that the world, our planet, is made of a certain amount of materials, that is a finite amount of material, is not infinite, their conclusion were wrong, because they said that humanity should limit itself. That they wrote that we have limits to growth. So I began to think about that kind of thinking, and I found myself very much alone, because in the world in that time there were not too many people thinking that humanity can have a future beyond the limits of our world, of our planet where we were born and grew up as a species. Therefore, I began to write and to look for friends around the world, and yeah, one year after another year, we came to put together what in 2008 took the name of a Space Renaissance Initiative. That is a philosophical association, and with the main goal to refound the general philosophy, to go over the pre-Copernican view that is still dominating in the world, and to open our world to the infinite resources that are in the solar system and in the cosmos, in general terms.
It's very interesting that you describe it as a philosophical association. When I think of associations, I usually think of confederations of organizations, of individuals who have a business interest, who have an interest in changing politics, who have an interest in changing communities. But what you're describing to me sounds more of an association of like-minded people who share a general curiosity about the world and want to help people develop their own perspective on the world further. Is that a good assessment?
Yes, definitely. Yes, yes. We say that. Well, often the let me say the space advocates say that they want to do things. They don't want to talk very much, to make blah blah. They want to be positive and make things, etc. Well, I have to say that Space Renaissance only talks. Our mission is to talk. We need to give to the people, to bring people to understand why humanity shall colonize the outer space. It's not easy. It's okay for us. It is obvious. It is like something like the water flowing from high to down. It's obvious, but in Europe especially, and in Italy, in the Latin countries, etc., people is not aware of our number. We are almost 8 billion people on Earth. They don't think this, even if they know it, they don't think this is important. They see the problems more in a let me say, in a moral way, because they think we are bad, the moral is decaying, and the society is going bad, etc. And they don't think that the most of the problems we have is because we are many in a closed environment. So our mission, our main mission, is to make people to understand these basic concepts, that we need to open our world and to expand into the outer space. So that's why we say we are a little bit provocative, saying we only talk.
I like the positioning, because it basically says, hey guys, yes, I know we're talkers, but that's what we're good at. And I mean, it's also necessary. I mean, you touch a good point there, that when people object to kind of the advocacy for certain issues, they generally do so along lines of, you're not actually doing anything. But if you actually don't pretend like you're doing something else, and you actually say, okay, this is the only thing I do, and this is what I'm good at, and here's what I'm actually achieving with that, then I think it's a fair assessment or it's a fair approach, and it's necessary, more importantly.
Yes, that of course it is not true that we only talk, because we are developing the Space Renaissance Academy. We are planning a big Space Renaissance tour for the next 4 years, touching all the continents. So we are doing a lot of things. But I want to stress the point that our main mission is to talk, to explain in simple words to the people why we need to colonize space. So the problem now is that we have...
Well, why do we need to colonize space?
Sorry?
Why do we need to colonize space?
Okay, we need to do that because we what we say, we have the Renaissance in our world that began 500 years ago with in Firenze, in Italy. The Renaissance began in Firenze by the Medici family that was gave patronage to artists and scientists, etc. And grew up, the Renaissance grew up through the Industrial Revolution, through several industrial revolutions, and now is aiming to space, because if the Renaissance cannot go to space, it will fail. It will be aborted.
Why?
Because the Renaissance need the resources, the big resources that are on the moon, on the near-Earth asteroids, and the big energy flowing from the sun that can be harvested in space very easily and in big quantity, very much more than double than on Earth, and you can do it 24 hours on 24, 7 days on 7, etc. And therefore, just outside our closed world, our so far closed world, there is a big richness. The Renaissance need this new world, like in 1492, the Renaissance took its spreading from the discovering of America.
Right, and it's like it needs a driving force or something that pulls it forward from where it is right now. I understand that. Like when we think about human beings as being subject to the Maslow hierarchy of needs, then yes, after you've achieved survival, after you've achieved security and food safety, then you start to progress towards ever higher and self-actualized or self-aware motives and driving urges. So I guess the Renaissance has achieved already a basic survival for a large group of humans on Earth, and now we are looking towards the stars for something that is drawing us towards it.
Yes, that is true, and we are looking at the stars also because we cannot be happy if we continue to see that however a large part of humans are starving and are underdeveloped. So I cannot enjoy fully my freedom and my welfare, my well-being, if I see that there are people starving and dying by starving and trying to migrate, dying during migration, etc., etc. And also, if I see that there are conflicts that are increasing, but this is one of the results of the closed world in which we are growing up, because the conflicts will be growing, will be increasing in this situation if we don't go outside. While going outside, the economy, the global economy, will be relaunched at an unprecedented pace. And this will decrease all the reasons for fighting and for hard competitions and all this kind of things. There will be a fair competition in space, because when there is abundance of resources, there are opportunities for everybody, and the social growth can restart. This is fundamental, is basic for the advance of ethics. Ethics cannot improve if we don't have resources that allow to me, to you, to your children, to have a work and to have a job and to grow up and to hope that their children will live better and they will have better opportunities, etc. So what we say is not a vision of many centuries in the future. We are saying that if the meaningful steps to open the high frontier will not be made during the next 10 or 15 years, the civilization runs a very high risk of implosion. Because when we are now almost 8 billion, when we will be 9 or 10, if the economical situation will be still the same and we will not have new industrial development, things will be worse and worse. And many forecasters, not only in our community but also outside, say that 2025, the 5 years from 2025 to 2030, will be very, very dangerous, with the risk of a global conflict with unpredictable results. So we are saying that we have to change now. The future is now. This is what we call a presentist vision compared to futurism.
Well, okay, what does that mean? What is the difference?
Yes, before I told you that we only talk compared to people that want to do. Okay, now we had futurism. We had futurism that for many, we had a beautiful science fiction during the past century that described a brilliant future in space, that described a fantastic future. During the last 10 years, the science fiction itself turned its versus, because science fiction became dystopic. We saw many movies talking about technology as the evil. Technology and science is the cause of all the human problems on Earth. So the science fiction was going back to support what we call the forces of the crisis, the forces that support the crisis.
Right.
Because they don't work for the Renaissance. But we say now that even the old futurism is not suitable for this time. We don't need another season of science fiction, optimistic science fiction, looking forward to 200, 300, 1,000 years in the future, etc. We don't need that. We need the future now. And this is the lesson from Elon Musk. Sorry, it's my antivirus.
No problem.
Okay. Una minaccia.
Making sure you're safe online.
Yes. So the lesson we learned from Elon Musk is not the announcement of the trip to Mars that he made. It's another thing. A very important thing is that this year he experimented reusable rockets. Fully reusable rockets. So his philosophy is very presentist philosophy, because he said, let's do what we can with the technologies we have. He said, we are not able to make a single stage to orbit yet. One only machine that take off from Earth, go to orbit and come back. We still need 2 stages at least. So why not to bring back to Earth also the first stage, not only the second stage? The space shuttle was not fully reusable because it wasted 3-4 rockets each launch. Now, Elon Musk said, okay, I will bring back the first stage. So we will not waste no engines anymore. This thing, this simple thing, is a classical egg of Columbus. Okay, it already reduced the cost to orbit of 1 magnitude, because it was around 900 million with the ULA standard price, and now is 100 million and less. And when the reusability will be fully consolidated, it will be very much less, because it will be only the cost of the maintenance. So this thing is very important. It is really a milestone in the process, because it makes the change of paradigm finally feasible. So we can move from space exploration, from military space exploration, to expansion of civilian activities, industry, and working and living and traveling and everything, civilian passengers in space. It is a completely different situation, different consideration from all point of view, scientific, legal, everything will change.
Right. Yeah, I think you touched on a few points there that I want to pick up. One is that you stressed the importance of marginal improvement, or on focusing on the thing we can change in the here and now or in the very near future, instead of kind of setting our sights on the nether regions, so to speak, the things that may be happening in future decades or centuries, instead of working on what we can right now. And I think that's a very important personal realization for anybody to have who is working on a big project, that instead of only aiming for the stars and kind of hoping that all the steps along the way will come true according to your plan, working on what is right in front of you, and kind of bringing that future into being through consistent and continuous work on the difficult and small steps that are necessary to actually get there. And then the second point that I heard you say is that the shift from military to space development, or from military exploration to space, like civic or social space development, is a shift that that kind of it takes place in the mind, but also in the structures out there in the world. And because it is now much easier and much cheaper to go to space and to do new things there, we will see an explosion not only of the activity in space, but also activity on Earth that supports that move into space. And I think it provides a great opportunity for people to come together who currently are in a paradigm where they would have to compete in order to survive, or at least that's what their mindset tells them. Instead of that, they can now work together to cooperate for an opportunity that brings them together and gives, like, puts in new energy into the system that they can then share by working together.
Yes, yes, yes. All what you say is very, very true and in tune what we are trying to develop. And yes, it is very much important what we said about this concept of presentism, because well, I will try to make a comparison. It is like if we are sitting on the railway. Let's think on an old railway where a train didn't pass since many years. Okay, so we are sitting there making a picnic. We are eating and talking and playing guitar, etc. Okay, and at a certain point, somebody listen to the rails and say, "Look, a train is coming." And people say, "No, what are you saying? The train is not coming. They don't pass from here since many years. So don't tell me stupid things." I say, okay. Then after half an hour, it went again. Listen to this noise. The train is coming. And people they don't want to believe. They keep on talking and making a holiday.
The forces of inertia.
Yes, and they have to, and they talk about what they can do. They can build a house in the middle of the railway, and a lot of things. And in the future, they can do this and can do that. But the train is coming. So these people say, when there is evidence that the train is coming, people say, this guy say, look, now, please, do what we can now to save our life. So take out our table, our things, etc., and first thing, take out from the railways because the train is passing. Then, when we will be safe in space, we will be established, we will be an infrastructure in the Geo-Lunar system, then we can think about everything. Colonizing Mars, colonizing the whole solar systems, etc., etc. But now we have to expand into the Geo-Lunar. We have to build habitats in the Lagrange points. We have to make orbital workshops, to make space debris recovering, to make operations in orbit, to make a lot of things, assembling of satellites, maintenance of satellites, etc., etc., etc. And the jobs will grow up, and the economy will grow up a lot. So this is the urgency that we want to communicate. We don't have time to have fun. We have to work now to save our situation because in 10 years, if the frontier will be open and the economy will be relaunched, things will be difficult, however. The time will be hard, however, but the difference will be that we will have an hope. We will have an open horizon for development, something that we don't have now.
Right, we have a clear direction in which way people can grow regardless of their background, their profession, all these things. Yes.
Exactly, exactly. And so this, for young people, this will be fundamental, because now young people doesn't know what they have to do. They are studying, but they know that after studying, they will be unoccupied.
Yes, at least in the Cold War, there was kind of something to draw people towards something, or to get a strong belief about something. Right now, we're kind of in this weird space, mind space, where lots of people they don't know what's going on, they don't care about many things, they have a very ironic stance towards society and towards their own life, and they kind of feel afraid or mock people who have a sincere approach to doing things that they care about. And so, yes, you're right, if we have this kind of unmistakable and undeniable opportunity and fact of being able to explore space and really growing into space, then people will have to think twice about how they approach their life and have to conduct their life with the awareness that this is happening. But you asked me to show a picture that you shared with me with the audience. Do you want me to do that now? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, just a moment. I will try to share my screen with the group. Let's see, present to everyone. Stop presenting. Screen share. There we go. So here is my screen. Do you see it?
Yes, yes. Now I see it. Yes.
So do you want to explain what is going on here?
Maybe a little bit, yes. So this is a vision of what it could be, the Geo-Lunar infrastructure in, let me say, 30 years toward, from starting now and toward the 2050, maybe. But already in 2030, we could have many of these structure operative. So we can. I cannot use the pointer, of course. If I use the pointer, it's only on my screen and not not on yours. However, okay. So if we start from the Earth, yes, we have orbital things around that are. Sorry, I have to take my picture in order to have.
No
a bigger view of what I'm saying.
And also for our viewers, just to understand, while Adriano pulls up his chart, we're talking about this in the context of the creative economy, because space is a new industry, or rather, it's a relatively new industry, at least in the grand scheme of things, that has the potential to spur on a lot of development, both in the human side, but also in the economical side, and also in science. And as a result of the change and development that Adriano already hinted at, we will probably see an explosion of activity in these sectors. And for that reason, people who right now are young, like you, like I, or rather like the audience and like I, we have an opportunity.
I'm not that young.
No, you're not in the audience. And you're also not as young as I am, although you are still.
Okay.
But people my age and even below and a little bit further on, they have an opportunity right now to already orient themselves towards this development, and then to benefit from and participate in and actually contribute to this development and bring it about in a peaceful and in a beneficial way. So this is why we're talking about this, and this is why understanding kind of what is going on here is important.
Yeah, so what we are looking here is a picture of what it could be, the Geo-Lunar infrastructure in 20, 30 years. And of course, it is, we have to think that is a quite different situation versus today. First of all, around Earth, there will be no more space debris, because it will be, everything will be cleaned up and materials recovered to build the infrastructure itself. We will have, well, in the plane of ULA made a very, very good plan. They plan to have 1,000 people living in space, in the Geo-Lunar space, before 2050. And this is somehow a plan that is according to our vision. But we have to think that many things should change in order to get there. Because first of all, we have to think that the astronauts so far are military trained people that don't have rights in space. So, and even the few space tourists that visited the space station during the last 20 years, Dennis Tito and the other ones, they paid a lot of money, and they signed a letter, a liberatory letter, that they will have nothing to claim in case of death or damages to their health, etc., etc. So we have to think to a situation in which the civilian passengers and workers will be warranted exactly as we are warranted now when we travel by airlines, or we stay in a hotel, on an Earth hotel, or we work in a company, in a factory. So several things have to change. First of all, we have to think about protection of human life against cosmic radiation and the decay caused by zero gravity or low gravity. We have to think that if we go to live on the moon, after a few years, we will not be able to come back to Earth, because our bones and our muscles will be weakened due to the gravity of the moon that is 1/6 of the Earth one. The same thing, a little bit lower, but this basically the same thing will happen to on Mars, because Mars is 1/3 of the Earth gravity. Therefore, we have to think to basically solve two problems. One is the protection against the cosmic radiation, and the other one is artificial gravity. That's why we think that artificial colonies, like the ones designed by Gerard O'Neill during the 70s of the past century, are most interesting from the point of view of civilians living in space, with respect to the project of Selenopolis made by Kraft Erike about the moon colonization. We are not saying that we shouldn't work on the moon. We can, of course, we have to work on the moon for mining, for industry, for research, for many things, many activities. But what we say is that it will be safer for people to live in large rotating colonies at Lagrange points and go to work on the moon for shifts of some months and then go back. So, well,
here
I try to give you a scenario in few words. It's not easy because there is very much to talk about, but it's just to give you an idea of how much we have to change to shift from the old paradigm of the military exploration to the new paradigm of civilian space development.
Right, and that's a very good transition point for us to go to the last kind of segment of the show, which is about your personal recommendation and advice to our audience and our listeners. As we already talked about, there are a lot of young people right now who are working on trying to figure out their own life, trying to understand what's going on in the world, who are trying to prepare themselves for a good job and perhaps a family and also a career. And as we now have understood, is the space development is going to be an unmistakable fact in the future. So what can these people do right now to start orienting their life toward that fact and to start getting ready for participating and contributing to it?
Well, let me say, all what we do, Space Renaissance, all what we talk about, all what the initiative we take are made for young people. They are the future, and they are our present and our future, indeed. Therefore, it is it is for their interest that we advocate the transformation and the renaissance that we were talking before. So the first suggestion is not to them, to the young people, but is to the people that have the responsibility to talk to them. I'm talking about educators, and journalists and medialists, because these people have a big responsibility to indicate the good directions to the young people, to give good models to them, and absolutely to tell them the truth about the history of the Renaissance, about the history of the astronautics, about the history, not only so what it really gave me, always gave me a bad feeling, is that in school we only learn history of wars. So we learn the history of humanity with the history of wars, conquers, and the history of violence. So what can we hope that young people will learn? They will learn that violence is still a value and love has no value. But in the reality, the progress of humanity was made by the scientists and the culture people and the philosophers that dedicated their life to the progress because they loved humanity. So what we are now is the result of the people who loved humanity, but the history of them is not taught at school. We only learn that Alessandro Magno made that, and the other conquered, and etc., etc., etc. So the first thing is that we have to communicate more the history of love in humanity and the history of the Renaissance, and at what point we are with the Renaissance and where we have to go if we want to complete this process. Yeah. So this is the first thing. So I take this chance to extend a call to all the people that have responsibility to talk to the public, to the general public and to the young, to listen to our messages and to transmit these messages, to spread these messages, because they are very, very important, first thing. So, to the young people, I will say that there are already now, many works that could be made in orbit by manned workshops and structures that will improve, and will improve technologies, will improve the profit also of the companies that are working in this domain, because this operation will decrease the necessity to put many automated devices on the satellites. Let's talk about satellite. That is the current commercial space is satellites. Okay, this is going on since 40 years, even more, and it is not ended, and we keep on putting satellites in orbit for many purposes. So decreasing the cost of putting satellites in orbit will be key to develop the economy, and this can be done by many jobs that can be made in orbit by people. So if I were even younger than what I am today, as Isaac Asimov used to say, I would try to look for this kind of jobs that are very needed, even now. They are very needed, and so this is the first thing. But let's also begin to think that many normal jobs will be needed in space during the next years, if the scenario that we talked before will develop. So we will need restaurants, we will need shops, we will need hairdressers, we will need sports, entertainment, arts, everything what we do on Earth virtually can be made in space. So we need the generations of people that begin to think in this, think out of the well, of the gravitational well, think in 3D.
That's a nice way to put it, yes. I like that.
Yes.
I like that metaphor.
Think in 3D dimensions, because right. this is where our mind can gain, that can access another dimension of thinking, and the big cultural leap will start from then. Even that we cannot imagine now, because we are sitting here on the bottom of the well. But when we will be there, people that will be there will think in another way, and we have to work for that. So right. To the young people, I say, try to orient your studies in another direction that is not horizontal but is vertical to the eye. So this is. I
think that's a beautiful closing statement. Yes.
Yes, I close with a philosophical statement, because I began saying that Space Renaissance is a philosophical association, but I think it's philosophy is very important. It's the basis of all what we do.
Yes, so I personally can second that. I personally have also spent a lot of my time investing myself into philosophy, into understanding how the economy works, how politics works, and all of that over the past several years has allowed me to bring a very unified or holistic perspective to all my pursuits. This impacts my personal life, this impacts my professional life, this impacts the people that I work and live with, and through that I have been able to instead of trying to compete with other people and trying to get better than other people, I have been able to invite other people into cooperation with me and to continue to work together towards shared things. So I would recommend our viewers to also reach out to me or to reach out to Adriano if you have questions, if you wonder how you can get started learning about these things, how you can start learning how to work together with other people. And other than that, I would also recommend you to, or ask you actually, to take our survey that is based, that is on work and technology in the 21st century, and this will help us in turn to understand you, where your mind is at, to try and help you better to overcome the challenges that you face and to grow in directions that you yourself want to grow into. So thanks everyone for watching. Thanks Adriano for being on the show. And,
thanks to you, and let me spend the very last word about Exosphere and the wonderful work you're doing there in Florianopolis in Brazil with your seminar.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Then
bye.
We're good, and I will see you in the next one.